Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here to present you with the next in the series of my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012, the new Nick show episode reviews basically, and this is going to be my review for episode 5 of that show. That episode is titled, I think his name is Baxter Stockman, the 5th episode of Season 1 of the Turtles. And basically, my thoughts on this episode are that, I suppose first of all I should say that I did enjoy the episode. I thought it was a really enjoyable episode and fun. I like the fight scenes and stuff like that. The Turtles' interaction again continues to be really good, and I did enjoy the way the Baxter Stockman as well, the new character introduced here as well. My problem, I suppose, that this episode kind of highlighted for me, I suppose, as an issue maybe with the series, if it kind of continues with this way for a few more episodes, is that we don't really know the plot of where the story's going so far in the series. What this episode highlighted for me is that, you know, at the start the Turtles are kind of acting like teens. You know, they're eating lots of pizza. You know, they're just messing around with skateboards in in the sewers, and you know, April's nowhere to be seen. When the only plot that we've really got so far is that the Krang have taken April's father, who's a scientist. There's no urgency, seemingly, to find him. There's none of that so far, and you know, them lying around eating pizza goes against what they said at the end of the opening two-parter, that they were gonna do what they could to find her father. So I felt like they do need to kind of get more story in place for this show. This episode really just came across as this is going to be a one-off episode. We're going to get away from the story and just focus on this. And you know, I'll talk about this more as I go through my various talking points. But yeah, you know, I like the episode. It's just for the whole series as a whole, I'm a bit worried that there's no story being presented to us really that much. Just in case you wonder, like, if I take notes for these episode reviews, I take a few notes, not that much, just some talking points so I know what I'm talking about. And my first talking point is Baxter Stockman himself, the new kind of villain character introduced in this series. I suppose he has an interesting kind of, I suppose, origin in the way he becomes a villain, in that it said kind of, he just says it really, that he made some mistake at his job trying to fix a printer by pouring toner into the wrong port or something like that, and he was fired for this and he wants revenge. It's a bit silly, like, it's just like, okay. And the big thing for me that kind of highlighted my problem, I suppose, with the series so far, is that they really made Baxter Stockman different to the previous versions of him, in that they only make him a kind of average inventor. Like, he makes that powered armor suit, but it's not really good. It barely works at all. And they don't. While the other two versions from the original show and then 2003 were like expert inventors, they knew what to do. He just seems quite average, and we don't know if that's just because he doesn't have maybe the money to make the stuff or whatever like that. But he just seems to be so far a kind of average inventor, not that much of a threat really. And he kind of, in his kind of history past, they present us with the fact that he kind of sort of bullied a lot, and that, like, the people at his work make fun of him. The Turtles kind of throw him in a trash can when they beat him, and they kind of make fun of him, and they kind of present that as his kind of issue, that he has been bullied a bit. But the reason that he's a villain is because he's taken it so far that rather than just standing up to people, he's now going to rule them, kind of like that. He's going to become a criminal to, like, make up for this being bullied thing. And for me, like, what I kind of wonder about Baxter Stockman is how they're going to, like, bring him back into the series. Is it just going to be that he appears in this one episode, or are we going to actually see him again? That's what I'm really, like, wondering right now. I hope he kind of comes back. Maybe kind of the Shredder hears word of him, and, like, through the Shredder he gets more, like, materials, tech, and he can actually make stuff that he can, because he is a decent inventor, I suppose I was fair to say. But I suppose the issue really is that it's very contained, this episode. Like, they throw him in the dumpster at the end, and you really wonder, is he ever going to come back? Like, there was no story, there wasn't much of a threat, I suppose, because you didn't really know what he was trying to do, really, just trying to, like, steal stuff, show people that he's not just someone who can be bullied, stuff like that. I just need a bit more on Baxter Stockman, I think. Um, I'll go on to the next point, which is the turtles, basically, in this episode. We see that they are acting like teens, as I said, and this episode really highlights that. We see they get grounded, they're there kind of gorging themselves on pizza, messing around with skateboards and ramps in the lair. Splinter grounds them, showing that he is their kind of father figure, not just their kind of master, ninja master. I like that. I suppose Mikey is my next talking point in this episode, and this is a weird episode in that it's not really that focused on any of the turtles. It's kind of a mixture of a Mikey and Leo focus episode, because you have Mikey kind of being the one who has the kind of teapot that ultimately makes Baxter Stockman's suit better, and then he's kind of the focus there. And then you have Leo kind of dealing with his leadership kind of issues with the rest of the group. So it's kind of a mix, and it's kind of just like, which one are they going for here? But I thought it was interesting that they didn't just focus it on one. They kind of made Leo and Mikey sort of more focused on Raph and Donnie. But Mikey, we see that there's this whole thing that the villains always chase Mikey for whatever reason. And I thought that was really funny, that he's just like, they're going to chase me, I know they are. No, we'll just split up randomly and it'll be random. And then it ends up chasing Mike, and he's just like, I told you. I thought that was hilarious. And then the other thing for Mikey was that he's a really, really good skateboarder, and he's doing these crazy moves. Like, he does like a 360 or 720 judo, just like a quadruple kickflip or heel flip, Christ air, and all of this while going over buildings in the top of New York City. It's just like over the top, but it is interesting to show that Mikey is a good skateboarder. Leo in this episode, he's my favourite character, obviously. I liked what they did with him here. They gave him like stuff like I suppose peer pressure, a problem here, in that, like, when they were grounded, Raph immediately wanted to get into them to leave, and he got Donnie and Mikey on his side. And then that sort of forced Leo, who wanted to stay there and was kind of like trying, like, as your leader, I want you to stay here. That kind of forced him to, like, make the decision, like, oh, do I just go with them or do I stay here? And kind of showed that I can't really lead them, so he just went with them. I kind of just, like, say, yeah, I'll lead you to where you're going. It's like, okay. And I suppose it makes you wonder, like, are they just going to reset some of the development a lot in this show? Because in, like, the opening two-parter, they did set it up that Raph had a problem with Leo's leadership, but then he accepted it at the end. So I like that they're keeping it going, that Raph doesn't quite respect Leo's leadership, but I felt that that moment in the opening two-parter was a bit more meaningful, and it seems like they're kind of forgetting that here, and that Raph doesn't respect Leo's leadership at all. So it makes Leo's kind of development as a leader kind of interesting, but it also highlights a few kind of continuity things with regards to some things in the series, I suppose. And then Leo, again, you have him following Splinter's advice. That advice that Splinter gives is obviously fight the man in the armor, not the armor itself, which he really takes to heart again, which is something that he's really doing. Like, he's really listening to what Splinter says to him, and I like that. The whole, he is, I suppose, a bit of a teacher's pet. It's not kind of played as much that way in this series, but it's definitely there, and I like that. Splinter, in the episode, that's the advice that he gives him. He's fought, I suppose, the Shredder. I'm not sure if he knows about the Shredder's armor yet, but it's kind of that setup, like that. This advice is something they're going to have to apply to fighting the Shredder at some stage, and then they apply it in the fight with Baxter Stockman, which I suppose is my last talking point. That fight at the end, and how they actually use that advice. But before I get to that, we see in this fight, they fight him in his, like, improved armor the first time, and we see they get pretty badly injured. Their weapons get damaged, destroyed, and see that they get lots of extra scars, cuts and stuff like that on their shells and stuff like that. And they kind of keep the continuity of that because later on when they're, I suppose, cleaning themselves up, Leo seems to have a few extra scars on his like kind of chest kind of plates, and so do the rest of them. So I'm sort of wondering, are they going to keep that kind of continuity, update the kind of CGI model with all these scars that they get from the rattles, or am I just kind of reading too much into it, and they just Leo always had those scars. So that's something to kind of look out for if they do update the armor, stuff like that. And then how they actually beat Baxter Stockman is they do fight the man in the armor. Like, they use the fact that he's kind of, I suppose, trapped in a way in the armor by sticking bees basically in the one kind of porthole in the armor. So like he can't get away from them, which is going to completely distract him because he doesn't like the bees flying around inside it. And they use that distraction then to kind of subdue the Stockman pod, I suppose, and then take him out. So yeah, final thoughts on the episode. It's a very enjoyable episode, but in my opinion, it just happens to be the worst episode of all. That's not to say it's bad. It's still a really good episode. Just out of the 5 we've seen, I think it's bottom of the list so far. And yeah, it just kind of for me highlighted the problems that this series is having right now. It hasn't quite gotten into the story yet. And I'm going to give it time to do that. I'm not going to expect next episode immediately to get into the plot, but I want to see them address the plot again. Because if they got too many episodes after episode 2 without addressing April's father, it's just going to be weird. They said they promised her, they haven't done anything about it. So that's been my review of this episode. Thank you for watching this, and bye.